Good day, I am Lesroy Williams, and today I will be having an interview with Mr. Emile Greene, who is the director of the STEP program, the Skills Training Empowerment Program. And we will be discussing recent developments that have taken place with that program. We know that over several administrations, there have been several temporary work programs. We can recall the YES, the Youth Empowerment Skills Program, the PEP, People Employment Program, and now the STEP, Skills Training Empowerment Program. The Prime Minister made the historic announcement on Labor Day that persons on the STEP program have now been regularized as government auxiliary workers or government auxiliary employees, something that has never been done before. Mr. Greene, welcome. And it's a pleasure to have you here. We thank you very much for coming and sharing with us as the director of the STEP program some of the recent developments within the program.
Thank you for having me, and I hope I will be able to at least give sufficient information so that the general public will have a good idea of the operations of STEP.
Right. Now, Mr. Greene, let me ask you first, what has been the transformation from the People Employment Program to the STEP program? Because remember, when the government took over, the government of national unity, there was the People Employment Program that was then upgraded, so to speak, to the STEP, the Skills Training Empowerment Program. That word empowerment is very important. So what has been the transformation and what has been some of the changes in the program over the years?
Thank you once again. What I can say is the Skills Training Empowerment Program, it seeks to provide empowerment to persons on STEP through skills training. The idea behind the change was simple, that every person who is on the program should be exposed to skills training in some form and fashion. It may be in an informal setting or a formal setting, but the idea was that you should not come on this STEP program and leave without acquiring knowledge and skills in a particular area. So in a general sense, I believe that would explain the difference between the two programs. Mm-hmm. I cannot speak too much about PEP since that was before my time, but I know what was the vision and idea behind the implementation and the name change to STEP.
Right, so what have been some of the changes in the program over the years?
Well, there have been many changes. For example, we have made changes in field and office operations, and we have now placed, like I said before, greater emphasis on persons getting trained. In the field operations, for example, we had many community cleaning groups. I think at the time we had 50-something groups with 12, 15 field officers responsible. And we have worked really diligently to bring some degree of control and efficiency to that operation. Mm-hmm. We have tried different things. At the present time, we have 14 groups, almost the same number of persons. And we have structured those groups and arranged work in a different way, that we only have now 2 field officers who take responsibility for those groups. We have trained the supervisors in many different areas. Previously, groups would just go out on a given day. Where are we cleaning today? Where are we cutting today? And it was done. Now, it is done by a work plan. There's a weekly work plan that the groups, the supervisors of the groups, they have to submit. We will look at it, review it, and if we think it's okay, we approve it, they implement it. So they do the weekly work plan. And that work plan comes with what tools you need, other than what you have at the time. Or do you need any extra manpower? Because sometimes a group may need extra persons based on where they're cleaning. So that is one of the major changes. In fact, I'm happy to say that just yesterday we completed another training with the supervisors where we did more in-depth training with respect to planning and implementation of the work plans, where we look at communication in the workplace. You know, managing a community cleaning group, a community enhancement group is not an easy task. You have persons from all kinds of different backgrounds. And so we provided training to supervisors so that the communication in the workplace will not cause further problems or chaos or division, but rather will be more healing and will bring more harmonious relationship within the group. We also look at decision making. You know, many persons without any training will make a decision based on a personal opinion, friendship, or whatever. So we did the process of decision making, the process of managing and resolving conflicts. So the field operation, I think, has improved, and it will improve further. We provide tools. We don't like to have persons who come with their own tools that create a difficulty. And we have a very organized way of monitoring the use and handling and I would say the safety of how you use the tools. So, and tools don't have legs, so they can't walk away.
Neither hands.
So we monitor that, and we hold persons accountable if tools go missing. They are accountable, and take it from me. People try not to lose their tools. Within the other areas, for example, in the private sector, we do monitoring and verification that was not done before. We have a team of verification officers who will go out to businesses and they will check to see a number of things. Are the persons assigned there? Are the persons assigned working? What is the relationship between the workers and the employer? What concerns the step workers may have? What concerns the employer may have? So there's a verification team that will go out and provide information for us. Before that, there was nothing. You just get whatever information is sent by the employers and you just work on that. Somebody could be in Anguilla or somewhere, but if timesheets come in, we pay it. And we do the same thing for the public sector. Now, with training, in some years gone by, maybe I think between around 2018, 2019, we did a lot of soft skills training with Dr. Chaitan. At the time, we saw the need because there were so many different social issues affecting our workers. And the government employed the services of Dr. Nevis Chaitan, who was here at the time. And we went around the country to the different communities, to the step groups in those communities. We went to them. And we did that training, which I think has paid dividends down the road. Presently, Because of the pandemic, the last 2 years, we were not able to organize a lot of the short-term training programs that we wanted. But we continued to provide opportunities for persons who want to go to AVIC to do technical and vocational training in the fields provided. We assign persons specifically to certain technical persons like electrician, plumbers, contractors, so that they can work in some ways as an apprentice and slowly but surely pick up knowledge and skills in that particular field. We are now in the process, moving to present day, we are now in the process of organizing a whole range of short-term courses for our STEP participants. In fact, AVEC recently offered, in collaboration with us, almost 30 different short-term courses in a variety of areas. And we have invited our STEP participants, those who have shown an interest, to register. And so we also have quite a few persons in that short-term courses. A few weeks ago, we organized a soft skill training program for persons assigned to primary schools, where we use our two very good local trainers, Mr. Noah Mills and Mr. Nigel Brown. And I think based on the way we set up the training, I can say that I think the success rate, the feedback was exceptional, because when we decide to do training, when we decide that we're going to spend money on the training, we make sure that people take it seriously. You can't walk in half an hour late, an hour late. You can't say I couldn't make it today because I wasn't. We insist that there are certain standards there. We're providing good standard for you. You are on the STEP program. It is a requirement that you come and you bring your best so that you can get the best of the training.
Right. Now, Mr. Greene, you know that empowerment is the key word there. And people are empowered through education and training. Mm-hmm. A number of times what we have seen, the number of these temporary work programs, is that they pop up when the term of a government is almost at an end. And they disappear when a government is elected. And so we have had the change in names from YES to PEP to STEP. But at the end of the day, what is important is that people are given real education, training, equipped with skills that will empower them, that would help them to find work, that would help to dignify them in some way. Mm-hmm. And so I'm hearing from you that that has been happening, that people have been really empowered through skills, through education, through training, and so on. They're acquiring skills, knowledge that will help them in the workplace.
Indeed.
And they will add value. They can add money for value, really.
Yeah. Indeed. You know, there's a saying that if you give a man a fish, you will feed him for a day. But if you teach him to fish, he can feed himself for a lifetime. I see STEP in the context of that. Whether it is formal or informal training, we are trying our best for our participants to acquire knowledge and skills. Bear in mind that we are not a training facility. We facilitate that. And so we have to work with other partners in order to get that done. So we work with AVIC. We have done some work with the TVET Council. We have done with some other training institutions. But even in the informal setting where we assign persons to trade, persons in the trade, so to speak, or even to a store, we emphasize that persons must be trained in various aspects. If you're in a store, there's something called customer service. If you have a step worker and they don't know anything about customer service, the store will suffer. So it is also in the best interest of the employer to provide that kind of training. There isn't sessions that are held in a lot of these in private or public sector settings where you go to a class. But the idea is that on the job, if you are directed to do the right thing, if you are monitored and measured to ensure that you're doing the right thing, then you should pick up knowledge and skills. When the opportunity comes that we can do a formal training session or session, then we can send people to those. And that is one of the things of the verification team. When you go there, when you go to a business, when you go to an establishment, are the participants being exposed to opportunities where they can acquire knowledge and skills in the particular field that the business is in? So, is it going the way we would like it to do? No, but opportunities are there and will definitely improve given time.
Okay. Right. Now, Mr. Greene, with the most recent development in the STEP employees transitioning over to government as government auxiliary employees, something that has never happened before.
No.
As I said, because these programs were meant to be temporary work programs.
Yes.
And then people go and find work wherever they want to find work. But now we are having processing now where people are transitioning into government. Now, what is the philosophy or the rationale behind that? The regularization, as we say, of the step workers.
You know, that question has been asked a million times since the announcement by the Prime Minister. And I am going to try my best to explain why the process of regularization is here as it is. As I said, in the past you had several work programs and, well, they stopped. We have STEP that is providing opportunities for persons to earn a living, because as I said, there must be dignity in living, and STEP is providing opportunities for many persons. In fact, STEP, in some cases, may be at this time the only place some persons will find work. You know, persons have had history. You know, persons have been in prison, persons have thing, and we accept. We don't show anything. We accept everybody. Everybody must live. Now, having said that, the government has continued with this STEP program because, yes, it provides employment, but it is providing skills training to persons as well. And if persons have knowledge and skills in a particular area, it is already there. And that is in the population pool, that is in the labor market. So you can't take that away. So in that indirect sense, it is there. However, one of the things that was very obvious when we went around the country and had these meetings in community centers, in all the communities, and the Prime Minister attended many of these meetings. We recognize that, yes, people are working, yes, persons are acquiring jobs, but there's a problem. And so when the announcement was made that step workers are to be regularized, the question must also be asked, well, what is not regular about the step workers? What is there why that they need to be regularized?
Yes.
And I can tell you this in perhaps 2 words. 1, permanent job status and job security. And permit me to explain, because you asked about the philosophy.
Yes.
Step workers are considered to be temporary workers. And if you're temp, then there are conditions and regulations that would apply to permanent workers in both private and public sector that would not apply to step workers. Because a temporary worker, for example, you don't know when that will come to an end. As you said, there were other programs that came to an end, but this government decided it would keep the program going. So there's no certainty, but it is a program. And the problem with working on a program is that the rest of the country see it for just that, a program. And that one day, given the history of YES and whatever other YES programs that were there before, one day it may come to an end too. So persons on step are considered to be temporary workers and the job position is not secure. Any transaction, any dealing with any commercial business, whether it's a bank or other lending agencies, any business that requires that a person has a permanent job status and they have good job security, step workers will be almost certainly excluded from accessing those opportunities. It means then that you have about 3,000 step workers in the labor force in St. Kitts. And you have 3,000 workers who, in some form and fashion, are disadvantaged. They're disadvantaged because they're considered temporary workers and their job status is not considered to be secure. So if I come to you as a step worker and I want to engage, I want to get something from your business, and there's an agreement that, well, you know, I will provide this for you for 24 months, for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And you ask, okay, where are you working? And I say, I am on the STEP program. Do you know what businesses say? I'm sorry. I don't think we can be able to accommodate you because you are not a permanent worker. And it is something that we met when we went around. Persons were very adamant with the Prime Minister in these meetings. Mr. Prime Minister, what can you do to help us? And so, I don't remember the exact year or when, but he did, at this time, but he did say that we are going to regularize the step workers. And so, regularize means that they are going to be placed in a position where the job status will be considered to be permanent and where the job security will be considered to be just that, secure. I would ask you this. In a developing country that is doing well, like St. Kitts and Nevis, the institution of government is respected, and whether government changes or not, the institution of government stays. And if you have a government job, teacher, police, whatever, working in an office as a clerk, as a cleaner, that job is secure. Whether you are auxiliary worker or civil servant, that job is secure because the institution of government remains. Unless something abnormal, out of the normal happens, that job is secure and it is a permanent job unless, like I said, something out of the normal happens. And I am not telling you this just because I want to tell you a story. We have had cases after cases where you may have 2, 3 persons working for private and public sector who wants to access some of the opportunities that are offered there in promotions. A business may have a step worker for 2 years, have a worker that they're paying for 1 year, 8 months. And that worker who is being paid by the business can access these opportunities that a step worker cannot in many cases. And that is not a situation where, in a society where progress is being made left, right, and center, that you should have a sector of worker, a category of workers who cannot access some of the day-to-day services. And I said day-to-day services. And so, let me say this. You have businesses who offer some of these services, have permanent workers and step workers, and they offer these services, these opportunities. The persons they pay can access, can get whatever, and the step workers, because they're permanent and you don't know what will happen to them, cannot benefit from the very same thing that maybe they're helping to provide to others.
Right, so this regularization speaks to persons who are attached to government.
At this time.
At this time. But you also have persons attached to businesses within the private sector.
Correct.
To companies in the private sector.
Yes, yes. The idea of regularization will apply to everybody. Because if you're on step, it is the same treatment you can get whether you apply to government or to private sector. What we're doing now, because we have so many different categories of workers on step, persons in the public sector, and even within the public sector there are different groups. You have persons in government offices and departments, persons who are assigned to like to health, park and beaches, persons who are in our cleaning groups. Those are working, they're considered to be like somebody in an office, they're government, but they're on step. And if you're on step, like I said, the impression, the perception of the business community especially is that that's a temporary position and your job is not secure. But the regularization committee is going to deal with making sure, because that is the mandate given to us by the Prime Minister.
Right, so that was my next question, to really speak to the step regularization committee, because that was set up to guide the process of the regularization of the step workers, bringing them over into government as GAEs, or government auxiliary employees.
Correct.
Where there's more job security.
There is. Like I said, if you're working for government, you can work for 10, 15, 20, 30 years until you retire. Oh, and once there's nothing that is abnormal, disciplinary issues or whatever, that job is secure. And it is considered to be permanent. Because the institution of government remains, then businesses does not. The thing is, what I'm saying is that because the institution of government remains, it doesn't really matter. Once you're working for government, and once you have been employed, whether as GAEs or civil servants, you are working for government. You have a permanent job status, barring any abnormal situation, disciplinary or otherwise.
Right.
And your job is secure.
Mr. Greene, I want you to speak to the committee that was set up. This because this has been in the works for quite a while. There are some people who might be saying, well, this is another gimmick
no.
by a government.
No.
So tell us about we spoke about the rationale, we spoke about the philosophy of regularization, the step workers, but tell us a little bit about the committee and what the work that the committee has done to reach to the point that we are today.
First of all, the committee consists of members who are full-time government servants and members from STEP. The committee is headed by the Accountant General, Mr. Butcher, and it has a representative from Legal Affairs, Department of Labor. I don't quite remember all the government offices, but I think there are 4 permanent secretaries on the committee. They are heads of the department, and labor. You have STEP representation on the committee, myself and Ms. Keynes. And so it is a broad range committee. The expertise on the committee will bring from different backgrounds, whether it's legal and HR of the government, whether it is guidance with respect to government regulations and rules, because you needed to know all that. And of course, from STEP, we have to explain how the STEP program is operated. Now, I think about 3 years ago when the committee was first established, again, I'm trying hard to remember the date, we set about, first of all, asking the question, how can this regularization be done in a smooth and organized manner? There must be order to the regularization. And it is a process. Any process, well, let me put it this way. There are many processes that have different stages in order to get to the end result. You may start at A and go to B, but you want to get to F. And so there are stages. The regularization of the STEP workers is a process. And the committee took the decision that persons who are working in government offices and departments will be regularized first. So evaluations were done. Each department had to evaluate the STEP workers and to make recommendations whether or not that person should come to government, should be transitioned to the government payroll as GAEs. We did evaluation also on the other persons in government, people in cleaning groups, people who are attached to health, people attached to the PMB. And so that has been done as well. However, because you're talking about a large number of persons, hundreds of persons, it has to be done in phases. And that is what is happening now. Those who are assigned to government offices have been regularized. Mm-hmm. And so they will see the change in status in due time.
Okay, so what has been the date for those who have come over? The first phase, the 1st of May of this year.
Yeah,
so as the 1st of May this year, they are now government auxiliary employees.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Correct.
Do you know how many?
I have how many, but I mean, I think eventually an announcement will be made. What I can tell you is hundreds of persons.
Hundreds of persons are now government auxiliary
workers. Yes.
And this is historic.
And they are just about to say that is now small. That has to be considered for the context in which it was done. Work programs came and work programs went. What we have in here is that you don't have a work program going away. You have persons who are involved in the work program being transitioned to become permanent workers. And that speaks volume to our country and the government and managing affairs, because you're talking about hundreds of workers who are now being transitioned to be given a new status. You know, a letter from the Step Secretariat cannot compete with a letter from the Human Resource Department of the government of SKNIS and Nevis.
Yes, and so therefore there are benefits, tangible
everyday
benefits.
Yes.
Benefits that are real benefits to regularization.
Yes, of course.
You can get a loan from the bank.
If I want to take my family for a little vacation, but I need some extra money, you can go and do that now.
Right.
I mean,
if you need a visa, for example, a U.S. visa to, you can take a government letter.
Yes.
And say that you're employed. Or you can take a bank letter.
Yes.
To get a visa. So it puts you in a better...
Yes. The thing is, I am an employee of the government of SKNIS Nevis. And that has weight. Compared to, I am an employee of the Skills Training Empowerment Program, which is a program with some uncertainty as to its life.
Right, and so therefore the workers also have medical insurance.
That's another benefit
of the government.
That's another benefit that they will acquire, because once you're transitioned to government, you're going, some of the benefits that you have, including medical insurance or health insurance, that is something that they and the family will also have.
And now they're eligible for a pension.
Well, you'll have to speak to the experts about that, but I believe if they are government employees, that is on the table as well. They should be pensionable.
So there is greater job security.
Greater job security. And I don't know if people understand the impact of having job security. Let me explain that. A person can, as a step worker, can go to an employer, private or public. And that employer may decide, today, you know what, I don't like what is happening here, I don't think you're a good fit for the organization, or you're not be followed. Go back to the step office. You come back to the step office, we don't pay unless you're out working. If you work, you get paid. If you don't work, you don't get paid. We may not be able to reassign you right away. Suppose you go home for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month.
You receive no pay.
You receive no pay. And that is the uncertainty that we're talking about. That is different now when you are a government auxiliary worker. All right?
You have a number of sick days, you Social Security,
well, they have Social Security.
I know,
they pay Social Security.
Right, but then you are governed by the statutory rules and orders of the government.
Correct.
And so therefore you cannot be just sent home at a person's whims and fancy.
No, there are rules and
regulations that must be followed.
But on a program, because employers will not see, they're not saying, I'm terminating you. They're saying, go back to the step office. But if you go back to the step, it's not like when you go back to the step office, you have to be reassigned. And we just don't want to send persons anywhere. We have to make sure that the employer where they may go is in a field, in an area that the person has an interest. and they will continue to want to acquire knowledge and skill based on the area of interest. So sometimes it takes a while, you know. And if it is taking a while, of course, the person is not being paid.
Right, so you spoke about the various phases. This is the first phase.
Correct.
And the next phase will be what?
Again, even though this is the first phase, and we are dealing with persons in government offices, remember that even within the first phase, not everyone in these offices are being transitioned. For example, somebody may not have obtained a good evaluation when it was done. And what we're saying, listen, this person must be given time to improve. This person must know that yes, the government wants to regularize them, but you need to improve. Your performance must improve, whatever area, attendance, quality of work, quantity of work. So this first phase, we will try to regularize as many persons as possible. Second phase will probably deal with the other areas, like for example, PMB, community enhancement groups, drain cleaners, those persons who are not assigned to private. And once we finish with the public sector, whichever category they are, wherever they are, once we finish with the public sector, then the committee will focus on persons in the private sector. Because persons in the private sector, they have to be regularized as well. It most likely will be different, but they too will have to be regularized. And the private sector, private businesses, will have to be involved in that process.
Now, Mr. Greene, the STEP program, you think it will be phased out eventually, totally phased out eventually? And so therefore people would be, brought over either into government or they will start working in the private sector. And so therefore there will be no need for a skills training empowerment program. The program has done what it was supposed to do. Workers have gained the skills, they've gained the training and education, knowledge base that they have. And so now they can have greater job security, whether at the government level or at the private sector.
Correct. I think that eventually that would be the goal. But like I said, it is going to be a process. And that decision will be to the policy, the persons who make the policy, who make the decision. At the committee level, our job is to make recommendations so that all persons on the step, whether you're assigned to public or private, to be regularized. The arrangement, obviously, for the private sector persons will be different. Government has taken the lead, the Prime Minister has taken the lead in saying that they have accepted the recommendation of the committee in saying that let us start with those in the public sector. Let us deal with those. So you are leading the process. You didn't go to the private sector first and say, okay, you deal with this. We will follow after with the public sector. The government has taken the lead and saying, okay, first phase recommended by the committee is that we will do the public sector first. And then once we are satisfied that that process is completed, then we can deal with those in the private sector.
Yes, suppose that some persons have not been brought over into the government service because of a very poor evaluation. And the person has been asked to improve in certain areas, whether it is attendance, punctuality, whatever the case might be. and that person shows no improvement, and the evaluation keeps coming that they are not seeing any sort of improvement in the person's performance, what will happen to that person in terms of, because you cannot have a lingering situation.
Correct.
So for some people, will there be a point, if they are not pulling up their socks, that they will be told, look, we cannot employ you, that you may have to go to look for employment elsewhere?
Well, Mr. Williams, even now, presently on STEP, if you have persons who are like that, whether in the public or private sector, and we have used different measures to motivate or to bring them up to the minimum level of behavior and attitude and job performance that you want, and you don't get, and that is not happening. You cannot have somebody on a program or working for an institution and you're not doing anything. That is waste. That is waste of public resources. Now, I believe that in the final analysis, the government will have to decide what will happen to those persons. Because while you don't want to have an employment situation in the country, you still can't have persons who are not willing to work for their dollars, just hanging around doing nothing, and sometimes maybe causing a breakdown in your system. So that will have to be decided. If you ask my opinion, I believe that person should perform. And if you're not performing and you are not adding value to your job, and on the contrary, you are devaluing your job and yourself, I don't believe that any institution should keep that person around. Mm-hmm. And that is why on STEP I said to persons that, and why we go, wherever we go, we said to persons, you must do your work in order to be paid. And if we find that work is not being done, we don't pay. Mm-hmm. So that is why I say we are ready. We are moving towards that. And I think that is fair to everyone. It is fair to an employer, whether it is government or private, and it is really fair to the person as well. Mm-hmm. Because you cannot join in what I would call a lie and make believe that person should just earn money for doing nothing. That's a waste of time.
Right. So, Mr. Greene, I want to thank you for coming and sharing today. If there's anything else that you want to say, you're free to do so. But I think you have covered all your bases.
Well, I am happy that to be here. I'm happy that we can further explain the regularization process, because we get calls every day asking for persons to know exactly what is regularization. A lot of times, persons have been wondering why do you need to regularize? But you have to be in the situation to understand the difficulty that some persons are going. And I believe the Prime Minister, in his wisdom, made a very wise decision, a caring decision, in order to regularize step workers. I believe I am in full support of the regularization, because you should not have one category of workers in the country can have access. Some workers can have access to whatever opportunities are there, and one category of worker, which is a large group, cannot have the same opportunities. So it is a very good process. It is a very good decision for a country, for a progressive country. Right. So thank you very much.
Right. And we want to congratulate all those workers who came over in the
definitely
in the first place, and to encourage them to continue doing the good work.
Definitely.
It's not just about job security, but it's also about them living up and being mature in the workplace, very responsible, and adding to the government service in terms of what the quality, the work that they do.
Part of the process will involve an orientation. an orientation into the government service, and so that will be explained to them. But I really would like to congratulate every single person who has been regularized so far. It is, I think, for a country, a major achievement. It is a big achievement. And I believe that this is something that the entire country can feel proud about.
Indeed, Mr. Greene,
Thank you.
thank you very much.